Or to the cloud. Okay, here we go. Recording us. All right, we're going to talk about parts of an expression. So I had you print this, or we actually wrote this out like a couple of days prior. And this is an example of algebraic expression. Holy moly, there's a lot going on, right? So the first thing I want to tell you is that the three boxes are terms. Okay? Terms are separated only by, so if you just write down terms, terms is where you cut it when you see only addition or subtraction. Only addition or subtraction, or in this case, we talked about positives and negatives. So we now should know that a plus sign is also a positive in algebra, and a negative sign is also a subtraction sign in algebra. Very, very, very important. Okay? So what you'll do, if I ask you how many terms are in an expression, there could be one term, there could be 2, 3, 4, 15. It doesn't matter. As long as you have addition or subtraction, you can cut it. If you see division, don't you dare separate it. If you see multiplication, don't separate it. So in this example, you would want to, so I see addition, so I'm going to be cutting it, hence why there's a box there. Cutting it in front of the sign. So this right here in the first box is a term. I see a subtraction sign. So then I would cut it right in front of that sign. And then this is a term. And then this is then my last term. So if I ask you to tell me how many terms are in the expression and what they are, this is what you can use as an example. So the terms in this expression, again, like I said, there could be 1, 2, 3, and many. You have 2b, which is in the first box, comma, 1b, comma, now pay attention, negative 6. Okay, I know you said, you're like, oh, that's subtraction. Well, it is, but in algebra, it also could be a negative. So please make sure if you see a subtraction, that is part of that number, negative 6. And really, this is a positive 1b, and really, this is a positive 2b, but I don't have to write that, okay? So those are what the terms are. Now, if you notice, I didn't separate the 2 and the b, because that's multiplication. Remember when a letter and a number touch, it's multiply? Well, these are touching, and I'm not allowed to separate if I have multiplication, so that's why it's clumped together. So, next word is a coefficient, okay? I call it the coworker. It has to work with something else, like a coworker, coefficient coworker. Basically, this is the number with your variable. And what is your variable? If you don't know what a variable is, it's your letters. Variables are letters. So coefficient is being multiplied by a variable. Now, I added this. So if, for instance, because originally, do you see how this is a different color green than the 2 and the 1? If you don't see a number in front, this 1 wasn't here, it is a 1. So if you just have b, it's 1b. You have x, it's 1x. So that is the number in front of the variable is a coefficient. So the 1 that's green is the coefficient. And I also have 2 of them. I could have 1, I could have 2, I could have 15. As long as I have a letter, I have a coefficient. So in this case, this example here, your coefficients would just be the number 2 and just the number 1. So see how here I took up the number 2 and I took up the number 1. Negative 6 is not a coefficient because it doesn't have a letter. It doesn't have a variable. So what is it? It has to be something, and that's why it's called a constant. Negative 6 is a constant. It is your term with no variable. Okay? And again, it has to be a term, so it has to have addition or subtraction with it, right? Or positive or negative. So in this case, your constant in this expression is negative 6. But here's what's unique about this. You don't have to have a constant. You don't. So there will be examples where we don't have a constant. You will always, if you have some letters, you're going to always have a term and you're going to always have a coefficient. Okay? In these types, always. Coefficient or constants are optional. Okay, constant is a number that will never change. The reason why -6 will never change because it doesn't have a variable. If you think about the like kind of like the prefix of it, variable. If I say the word varies, it changes, right? I could change 1b to 10. What if I make b 10? 1 times 10 is 10. I could change 2b to 10 too. How? 2 times 5 is 10. These can change. The first two terms can change. The last one can't change. So that is how I also remember a constant. Like think about a lab experiment, like in science class. You have controls, you have independent variables, you have dependent variables, constants, right? Constants is a thing in the experiment that never changes. So just let you know. All right, and again, we talked about this earlier about when they touch, it means multiplication. So let's go ahead and go into our first examples here. Number 1. Okay, I'm going to ask you on the homework, which I also asked you on Tuesday's homework, about like coefficient, constant, how many terms. So this is where now I split it apart. We're not writing, we're just telling me what it is. So we're going to identify the terms. Now there might be 1, 2, or many. Coefficient, and I'm going to write it out the first couple of times, but I'm not going to continue to write out the whole word. Again, there could be 1, 2, or many. And constant, there could be 1, there could be 2, or there could be none. If you have a letter, you're definitely going to have pretty much all the examples I give you, you're going to have the first 2. This one, sometimes. Most of the time you do, okay? So, terms. Do I have addition or subtraction? Yes. This is multiplication. I don't separate that. This is addition. So I'm going to cut right in front of the plus sign or positive sign. And I'm going to box in my terms. I got 2 terms here. I got 2x and I have a positive 6. So what are my terms here? In the first box is 2x, and the second box is just 6. You don't have to put a positive 6, but if you want to, or a plus 6, that's fine. It won't mark it wrong. It's correct. Okay. Now that we know our terms, coefficient is your coworker. It's the one with your variable. So look at your 2 numbers here. Is it 2? Is it 6? Is it both? It's got to be something. Which number would I write down that is the coefficient? Well, I got a letter. I have a variable. So in this example, 2 is my coefficient. So I took care of this one. Is 6 a coefficient? No, it has no letter. So this one is no variable. So in this case, my 6 is my constant. It's not going to vary. It's going to change. It's going to be the same every single time, no matter what I do with it. It's going to be 6. It's not going to change. That's the part that I think I did a little too much altogether. So there's one example. I have plenty. Okay, let's look at another one. Like I said, I'm starting out easy. Okay, so same thing again. So if we were doing notes, I would just do this. So I don't have to write it out twice. See how nice that is, a little chart here. Okay, so terms. Okay, do I have addition or subtraction? I go, oh, I see addition. So I'm going to cut it right in front of the addition sign. So I have 1, 2 terms. So my terms are x, 10. no negative or no subtraction. So it's just x and 10. Okay, there's your terms for this example. Coefficient. Coefficient is a number that is with a variable. Oh, wait a second, I have a variable. So we talked about if I don't see a number in front of here, it is a 1. So this is really a 1x. Can you write x? Yes, it's fine. Or you can write 1x. If you keep on writing 1x, it's going to help you remember as you get further in algebra. Okay? So, let's see. I have a 1 and a 10. Are one of them a coefficient? Are both of them a coefficient? Well, in this case, coefficients are with variables. So, 1 is my coefficient. 10 does not have a coefficient. Or I'm sorry, 10 does not have a variable. So, it's not a coefficient. It's a constant. So, I took care of both of my numbers here. That's what it means by identifying coefficients and constants. It's just the numbers. Don't put the letter there because I already know what a letter is. It's a variable. Okay, so these are the same. Instead of me writing out these words twice, I just said, oh, these are the same categories. Okay, so again, terms, only addition or subtraction. Coefficient with a variable, constant without a variable. Let's look at another one. Number 3. This will be number 4. Okay, I'm going to write out terms, coefficients, or coefficient. It could be plural, it could be singular, and constant. Okay, let's do the first one here. Do I have addition or subtraction? I do. Now be careful. Cut it in front of the addition or subtraction sign. So I have 1 term, 2 terms. 2. What are my terms? 5x, and be careful now, -6. -6. Why? Because of the sign in front. A subtraction sign is a negative sign. Correct, Sophia. Okay, now, coefficients are with the variable. This one is without a variable. Okay, do I have a letter? Yeah. So I have a 5 and a -6. 5 is with a variable, so 5 is your coefficient. Is -6 with a variable? Nope. So -6 is a constant. That's how easy it is. Okay. All right. Let's look at this problem now. Same thing. Okay. How many terms do I have on this one? Ooh. I see addition and subtraction. So I got to cut multiple times, just like the first page I showed you. So I have to cut in front of the positive, in front of the negative, or in front of the addition, in front of the subtraction. And now I box them in. So I have 1 term, 2 terms. This time I have 3 of them. Uh-oh. You're allowed to have 3 terms. I told you that's okay. So let's write it out. I have 3x, took care of that. I have a y, took care of that. And I have a -5. Negative. Subtraction and negative. Get your eyeballs to realize that is a negative. I know it's a hard understanding. So now all I have to do is look at my numbers now. Okay, coefficient is your number with a variable. Okay? All right, look at these terms now. Ooh, 3 is with a variable. So 3 is a coefficient. I have a variable again. I have a y. So remember, we don't see a number in front. It is a 1. So guess what? 1 is a coefficient. So I took care of 3, took care of the y, the 1. Is -5 have a variable? So it's not a coefficient, it goes in this category. It's a constant. So again, variable versus not a variable. Just remember, constants never change. I can make x and y whatever I want. That's why it's a coefficient, not a constant. Okay, so like I said, you're allowed to have more than one term. You're allowed to have more than one coefficient. You're allowed to have more than one constant, or you could not have a constant, but you always will have the first two categories. Okay, so I'm trying to go slow like I did last time. So hopefully this is making it a lot easier. And this is how I would take my notes. I'd write these words down once and then just use the lines to divide it. Okay, now these are last two different problems with addition and subtraction, okay? So what about this one? Terms, coefficient, and constant. And see, the more you write this, especially with like all my little hints, the easier it will be. I know, like, who wants to write all these 17 steps, Mrs. Edwards? Well, if you want to do well, you're going to do it. Okay, so here's our next two problems. I think is this 5 and 6? Yeah, 5 and 6. Okay, so here we go. Remember, terms, cut with addition and subtraction only. So I got a plus sign, so I cut in front. Got addition sign, so I cut it in front. And I got another addition sign, so I cut it in front. So this time I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Holy moly. So I have A. These are all positives, so we don't have to worry about negatives. 2B, 3C, and 4D. 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms. I got 4. Okay. Coefficient with your variable, constant without. Now, if you ever see this, this is note taking. Okay, when I was in school, I learned how to do this. So W with a slash, backslash, that means with a variable. W/O means without. So you don't have to write the whole word out. Without a variable. And I'm just using VAR for variable. Okay? All right, coefficients. Holy moly. We got a lot, don't we? Coefficients with the letter. Okay, remember, we don't see 1 in front of a variable. It's a 1. So 1 is my coefficient. A is a variable. I got a B. So therefore, 2 is my coefficient because it's with a variable. Took care of that. I have a C. That's a letter, a variable. So guess what? 3 is also a coefficient. It's with a variable. And D has a number and is a variable. So therefore, 4 is a coefficient. Wait, I just took up all my numbers. I don't have a term that doesn't have a variable. So do I have a constant? No, I do not. You have no constant. I took up all my numbers. I took up the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4. So this time I don't have 1. It's okay to not have 1. It's okay to not have 1. So that's it. It's done. You always have first together. Okay, now this one I tricked my advanced kids with. Sorry, I used to teach pre-algebra, so that's why it's in my mind. Okay, so let's do the same thing again. 22 plus 3y. This time I just flipped it around. Big whoop. Same idea. Do I have terms? Of course I do. I have addition or subtraction. I do. So we're going to cut in front of the sign. So I have 22 and 3y. That's positive. That's also positive. So all I have to do for my terms is write 22. Took care of that. Comma, 3y. Took care of that term. So after you look at that, now you can identify coefficient constant. Okay. Ready? See if you get this right. Coefficient which one is the one with the variable. So if you are at home and you realize, oh, wait a second, 22 doesn't have a variable. So it can't be that one, it's gotta be the 3. So if you said 3 was a coefficient, you didn't get tricked. 3 is the coefficient. 22 doesn't have a letter, so it's not coefficient, it's a constant. Okay? So it is okay to correct, Sophia. So it is okay to have it a different, like flip the terms around. I can do that. That's okay, that's allowed. So even, I'm gonna go ahead and extend this page just to show you just real quick another example. If I just had 3x minus 2 plus 5x, my terms are 3x, negative 2, and 5x. The only reason that looks small is because this video part's in the way. So my terms are 3x, negative 2, 5x. If I ask you the coefficient, remember, it's not just the first term all the time, it's the only ones with the variables. So my coefficients in this example are 3. Negative 2 is not with a variable, but 5 is with a variable. And then, therefore, negative 2 is a constant. So I'm just trying to let you know that just because you think it's always the first 2 terms you write down, no. Be in any order. Any order. Pay attention to the sign, though, okay? All right, so it's negative 2. I know it's a hard concept to understand, but I'm just telling you that's what it is. Okay. Last but not least, the hardest ones are these. Okay, you're like, what do you mean? How's this hard? Well, here we go. This is our last 2 different ones. So we have terms, coefficient, constant. Now I'm not writing out the whole word this time because you should be able to get used to my little lovely chicken scratch. Oh, apparently I didn't put that together. Okay, here we go. This one. X is being divided by 15. Do I have addition or subtraction? No. So I can't cut it. So how many terms are there? This is my only term. X over 15. That is all I have for that one. I don't have addition or subtraction, so I cannot separate it. Even if it looked like this, guys, kids will do this every single time. Do not do this. Oh, I cut it right here. So there's 2 terms. No, that's not addition. That's not subtraction. What are you doing, you crazy kids? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't. Don't. Okay? Sorry, I'm a little excited. So you don't separate it. So you're going, wait a second, then, Ms. Edwards, I'm going to struggle with this. So, common mistake. Kids say, oh, the number in front of the variable. I know that. Ms. Edwards, this is a 1. So 1's the coefficient. You can't separate 1 and 15. They're glued together. So, if you write 1 right here, you're not listening to me. The coefficient in this example is the hardest one to find. The coefficient is 1/15. And you're going, what? I told you it's glued together. So 1 has to go with this 15. Do you see how that's a fraction? 1/15. If you know anything about what we said, that is the same. This is really 1/15 times x. It's the same as what we talked about yesterday. Remember how when I said if I take a number and I cut it in half, it's the same as multiplying by a half, right? If I say take half of 10, 10 divided by 2 is 5. If I take 10 times a half, guess what I'm going to get? 10 times a half, I'm going to get 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So this and this mean the exact same thing. That's why this 1 divided by 2, or 1/2, is your coefficient. That is why 1/15 is your coefficient. I know it's a hard thing to understand, but hopefully with a half will help you understand why it's that. So if I used up 1 and the 15, do I have a constant? No, I only have one term, and this term is the only term that has a letter. So guess what? I don't have one. The only way I would have one if I had a plus something or a minus something with no letter. So one example will not cut it. I always want to do a couple, okay? So let's do another one, same thing. It's still a division problem. So term, this is divide. This is not add or subtract. So there's only one term. Looks weird, but that's true. What's my coefficient? Again, don't tell me the coefficient's 1, because you're like, oh, 1, this is a 1. Why? So 1's a coefficient. No, it's glued together. You can't separate 1 and 52. So guess what? Ironically, 1 over 52 is your coefficient. And since I already took care of both of those numbers, I have no other terms. So again, I don't have one. Okay? I know it looks weird, and you're going, oh, but that is what it is. Good job, Sophia. All right. And again, be careful with that. Even if I have this 3x and I say, okay, how many terms do I have? I don't have addition or subtraction. So the only term I have is 3x. Do I have a coefficient? Well, I have a variable, so 3 is the variable or the coefficient, but I already took up a 3. I have nothing else to pick from. So again, I don't have one. So if you just have multiplication or you just have division, one term. One term all day, every day. All day, every day. Even if it looked like this, 1/8 x. That's still multiplication and division, right? It's lumped together, 1/8 x. What's the coefficient? 1/8. What's the constant? There isn't one. So again, I'm just trying to show you where it is different. It's okay to not have a constant. Don't think that you always have to have one. Okay, so hopefully that helps. So that was the last problem that I had. So I went over difference between coefficients, constants, and terms. I referenced back to this problem right here, which now brings up a lot of the things that we talked about. So this is on your main screen when you click on the assignment. If you have not written this down into your notebook, that would be something that you would want to make sure you do. Once you write your guys' terms out and really pay attention, you should be easily able to see how that method I did with like crossing. I already took care of the 2. I already took care of the 1. Oh, I didn't take care of the -6. That's the best way to do it. Like the methods that I'm doing, like taking little baby steps, is what you should be doing. The boxing, the writing it down. Okay. You know, once you box it, it's easier for your eyes to see what you're looking at. Okay. So when you get to your assignment, which I'm going to go right to that. Here, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, actually.